all of this stuff hit, I mean, did you have like an emergency savings account, or was that just, hey, we have a grand or two in the bank and we've got money on credit cards, so we feel okay? And then all the stuff hit, or did you not have any sort of cushion?
I've never been in the situation where you rack up like so many emergencies before, but also I'm coming off of college.
Yeah.
So for me, the sweet spot was I always kept like $6,000 in my bank account as a buffer at all times, and I usually kept an emergency fund. But the emergency fund went to pay like a lawyer's retainer and a transmission, and then I got really nervous because I was like, I don't know if like our incoming and our outgoing like match at all because we weren't really budgeting very well at the time.
Yeah.
And so I started not auto paying my credit cards. And that like was the kicker because then it got like out of hand. And then 4 months later, you're like, oh, you know, you can't pay in full, but you don't really
Mhm.
know how much you can pay. So then you just pay a little bit. And then pretty soon it was like 10K and then 12K. And it just kind of skyrocketed. And
I
it's
mean,
sad
but
that I don't really know exactly what happened, but yeah, it just kind of spirals and it gets out of hand before you know it. It's very easy to get into debt.
yeah.
It feels very accidental.
Especially like when you have a couple serious things. I mean, obviously there weren't smart choices being
Right.
made to end up with a DUI, but still like wreck car, DUI. I
Right.
mean, even if you had a 15 grand reserve, it could be gone. Um,
I remember
so
like
then,
lawyer's retainer was like over I think $3,000, which I mean at
yeah.
the time it felt like a lot because you're newlyweds and I'm like what the heck is happening here?
And I mean, oh man, there's just a lot here.
I know,
So
sorry.
no, this is good stuff. So I mean,
Ask
and part of it is right. We learn from our failures, and that's how we get ahead a lot of the time. So I mean, all this stuff happened. You weren't making necessarily horrible financial decisions, but then life hit, and all these bad things happened. How long was it before you came across Dave Ramsey?
So the DUI was in May, I want to say. We got married in January. The DUI was like 4 or 5 months later, I think
Oh
May.
wow.
And then he quit his high-paying job, which we had planned on. But when everything hit the fan, like that wasn't a good choice anymore. Um, and then trying to think. Oh, I've had a friend tell me about it because I was just like freaking out about the cost of a DUI and needing a new truck and just like stressed. And at first I was just really annoyed because Dave Ramsey doesn't come across as the best person to a lot of people. Like he kind of yells at people on the phone.
Yeah.
And so I was like, literally spent like months Googling like all the blogs that talked about how terrible Dave Ramsey was. And that's how I spent the first few months. And I like to call that the denial phase, where I was just like, Dave Ramsey has to be wrong. Like my very first blog idea for my own blog was, you know, Dave Ramsey's crazy or Dave Ramsey. I can forget my witty title I had then. And then we were in so deep at that point, I didn't really know how to dig back out. And it just seemed like everything was just going out and not enough was coming in. And then we also learned that the business that he had joined with his family wasn't going to be sustainable through the winter months. It was a seasonal business, but we didn't know the income would drop off so fast. And so I just freaked out because I'm like, we can't cover our minimum payments on just my income. And so I was like, this is not okay. And so then I really drank the Kool-Aid and just buckled down because I'm like, there's no other way. Like, he might be insane, this Dave Ramsey guy, but we're doing it. I don't even care. So, and then I started waitressing and I waitressed then. So I think about August, I have the sticky note from July 31st of 2016 where I wrote up all our debts and sat on the floor and cried because I just didn't want to know how bad it was.
Oh man.
So, yeah, 8 months into the marriage, I was like crying on the floor, being like, there has to be a better way to live life than this.